Hi Lon, hi folks, it's Lev. Welcome back to another video. For those of you who are new, I'm using pronouns. I am outside today. I'm in St Kilda. There's a little park here. I'll flip the camera. Luna Park is... That's Luna Park right there. That's Luna Park. And I'm just chilling here. I'm gonna make a video here because it's a nice place and I have thoughts. So I was reflecting a bit about my self-worth and just beauty in general and what beauty expectations there are in terms of different things, including our body, and how all of this has been ingrained into like beauty standards. Just heard a siren, that's why I stopped. There's like beauty standards, unrealistic, very unrealistic beauty standards that are getting ingrained into us and how it can affect our mental health. And I'm gonna be talking about all of this, or my thoughts on it at least. Firstly, I was thinking about normal. What is normal? Like, there is no... What defines normal? Firstly, there is no universally accepted normal for certain things because, for example, in different cultures, different things are considered the norm. And individually, what's normal for us can be also be very different. And thinking about that, I'm gonna share this as well. I do have issues with my body image and I do look down a lot at my abdomen and I mean I'm not as self-conscious as I was of it now compared to when I was younger, but it's still there. And it's the idea of me being thinner, more muscular definitely gets to me because that's what's ingrained into me, like in terms of what men should look like, you know, have abs, have a six-pack, have have a muscular physique. And it's just really unrealistic and unachievable for I say a lot of us. And I definitely am aware that the beauty standard in terms of body image for women is, I guess in general, there's more pressure for women to look a certain way than I guess for men in general. That's what my understanding of it is. And when we don't meet these beauty standards and these expectations of what we should look like in our physique, we feel sad and down and just hopeless, like I'll never be able to achieve that, I'll never be able to look like that, and I'm not beautiful because I don't look like that. But then where does this come from? Where do these ideals and stuff come from? Like we don't... I always I said this in my other video, but we don't come out of the womb with... Okay, we don't come out of the womb thinking men have to look this way, women have to look this way and achieve this standard in order to be considered beautiful. Like we don't come out of the womb thinking that. It's been taught to us that these standards, these expectations are normal, and anyone who falls short of these expectations and standards are less beautiful. And I don't understand in general why society is so obsessed and just fixated on just having this particular body image, and why this, you know, you have to be thin and, you know, not chubby sort of ideal. Why is that the norm, considered the normal and the standard? Why isn't the standard like everyone just embrace their bodies just from a very young age, just teaching kids to embrace their bodies, their size, regardless of what it is? And I'm thinking, if the society in general did not place all of these expectations onto us, even subconsciously, like even if someone doesn't tell us directly, hey, you need to look thin, you need to be thin to be considered beautiful. Don't attack me, seagulls. Yeah, even if it's like seen everywhere, like in media, magazines, literally advertising everywhere, there's always this, the ideal beauty standard being displayed, and there's no diversity. There is a lack of diversity in mainstream media, and that is that message also subconsciously gets ingrained. By ingrained, I mean it gets strengthened in our mind essentially, because it's all we see. That's mostly what we see, and the more we're exposed to something, more I guess the more strong the image becomes in our mind. And that's why, even subconsciously, we think this is the beauty standard, and if I fall short of it, I'm not good enough, and I'm not beautiful, I'm not worthy because I don't meet this standard. And this entire chain is just really damaging. But what can we do about it? I think it's like I don't have a specific step order. I'm just these are just different considerations, but it's not like step one do this, step two do this, step three do this. It's like it's not this. Um, it's important, I think, to be aware that we didn't we didn't put these pressures and expectations and standards on ourselves. Like, it's not our fault that this is what we see as normal, for lack of better words. It's not our fault that this is what society has been teaching us and showing us our entire life. Like, just separating that, okay, these are the standards that are currently in my mind for what beauty looks like, and to be beautiful, I have to achieve the standard. Just separating that and separating that from ourselves and acknowledging I didn't come up with this. I didn't come out of the womb placing these pressures and expectations on myself. It is the society I live in. It is not my fault. That I think that's important. And I guess linking to that, just being aware of the subconscious thoughts, or maybe conscious, the thoughts that impact the way we behave, act, dress, our self-esteem, our self-confidence. Just being aware that this beauty factor, yes, this might be one thing that's affecting how I see myself, how I feel about myself, how I think other people see me. Just being aware that this can be something that affects us. And then realize that it's important to also realize that we do have control over this. Just because, yes, this is the image that's been placed in our minds from a very young age, it doesn't mean we're doomed for life, and it doesn't mean that we have to hold this image and this standard as, okay, this is what I need to do to be beautiful. Just like learning, like we can learn new skills, right? We can learn how to ride a bike, we can learn XYZ, but we can also unlearn things. But I think unlearning thing requires us to go against the grain, and it can be challenging because the automatic thought process in our brain and the pathway that's already strengthened is I have to achieve this to be beautiful. But unlearning this bullshit essentially is possible. But again, I acknowledge it can be a challenge, because in the face of everything we see is just this reinforcing our existing the standards we exist reinforcing the standards we currently hold, right? But unlearning this, breaking the chain, breaking it down, and saying, just imagine you're deleting this from your mind, putting in the recycling bin and emptying the trash. It's not that simple. I'm not saying it's that simple, but and it takes a lot of time. But again, it is not impossible. Like with learning, it is also possible to unlearn things and learn a new standard that is defined by you. So you might be asking yourself, Lev, how do I unlearn these unrealistic beauty standards? I guess there's a lot of different ways, um, and but the important thing is that there is consistent effort in going against the grain. For example, just doing anything that signals to our brains and existing neural pathways that, hey, this is actually garbage and it's not very useful. Start breaking it down and building this new pathway. Like, for example, writing the unrealistic beauty standards on a piece of paper, crossing it out, and then writing some more affirming and kind messages, or just having kind affirming messages about beauty in your room or on your phone or wherever it is, and so that you're constantly exposed to the new and kind affirming statements. Another thing is, you know, something I did with internalized transphobia is write all the internalized transphobia on a piece of paper, or type it out, print it out, and set the piece of paper on fire. Like, don't burn your house down or anything, but like, set the piece of paper on fire. And it's, for me, watching internalized transphobia, it's not about beauty, but internalized transphobia that's been tormenting for me for so long. Watching it burn into ashes right before my eyes was incredibly fulfilling and satisfying. Just being like, a fuck you to internalized transphobia, watching it burn right in front of my eyes. And with the automatic thoughts that we have about beauty, it's also important, I think, to acknowledge it. Like, we shouldn't run away from it or like try to suppress it, because for me, the longer I suppress something, the stronger it comes out later on in my life. So just acknowledge it and be like, or it might be helpful if you like to give it a name. Like, pretend it's like another person saying this to you and giving this person a name, or in this case, the thoughts in your head a name, and then you can address it differently as being separate from yourself. Like, for example, I am Lev, but these unrealistic beauty standards are not Lev. It's not a part of Lev. It's just something I experience, but it is not me. It is not defined by me. It is not a part of me. Just separating it out, and then back to acknowledging it. Just like, okay, you're here right now. I acknowledge you. You're here, but you are not true. You're false. You've been hurting me. Like, you could pretend to have a conversation with her. Be like, you have been hurting me for so long. I can't achieve you, and just your ideal of me trying to reach you and this expectation that I have to reach you is really hurting me, and it's unrealistic, and you're not very helpful to me anymore. So I'm just gonna have to say goodbye to you slowly over time and replace you with XYZ. And it might take time for us to genuinely believe it. Like, we could be saying nice, kind, affirming, realistic things to ourselves, but we might not truly believe it deep down at first, and that's okay. I'm telling you, this is okay, and this is part of the process. Because again, I'm sorry, I keep fixing my mask because it keeps sliding down my face. It's okay, because again, what we've considered as normal for so long, especially subconsciously, is still rooted down there. Like, the root of that is still in our head, and it takes a while for us to dig it up, essentially take everything out and planting a new seed. And yeah, it's okay. Even though you might not believe it deep down at first, that's okay. And just the more as time goes on, the more we reinforce it, the more we feed this, the more we water this, the stronger it'll get, and it'll just keep growing, and then the old one just suddenly doesn't really affect us anymore. And as we start detaching from these unrealistic standards, we start believing the kind of affirming things that we have been telling ourselves on our journey. It's sort of like out with the old, in with the new, and that takes time, and that's okay. And again, it's okay if we don't believe it at first. That's part of the process. Just keep saying it to yourself. It's again with me and transphobia, for example, slightly off topic, but a good example. When I first came out as trans last year, internalized transphobia, I thought I genuinely believed I was a freak. I genuinely believed I was disgusting. I genuinely believed I was a monster, I keep fixing my mask, jeez. And an abomination to society for being a trans person. And this haunted me. Like, I came out as trans. I'm like, yeah, I'm trans, but I wasn't really proud of it, and I didn't embrace it, because all of these unhelpful thoughts and the image I had about myself for being trans was not very nice and not very kind. And it took months for me to start detaching from all these thoughts and out with the old, in with the new. But right now, at this current point in my journey, I fully embrace my identity. I love it, and even though it's challenging, I wouldn't change it for the world. And getting to this point and loving myself genuinely, and not genuinely seeing myself as a freak, it took a while, but I got here. And you can do the same thing. Another thing that might be helpful is asking someone you trust or your friends, family, who or someone you trust to sort of say the messages to you. So it's someone else saying it to you. That can help reinforce and water the new seed we've planted for more affirming and realistic standards as well. Like, you don't have to do this alone. It's okay to do it with other people and journey with other people as well. And just wrapping up the video, honestly, like we define our own standards and what's considered beautiful for ourselves. And we, it's hard. It's easier said than done, but we don't have to listen to the bullshit mainstream media and everything, all the advertising, everything around us telling us that we have to look like XYZ in order to be beautiful. We are all good enough. You are good enough. I'm telling you, you are good enough. I am good enough. The person over there is good enough. The person over there is good enough. And we don't need to reach XYZ standards in order to be good enough, because as human beings, we all have worth, we all have value, and what we don't do, and how we look and how we might not look, and whatever it is, none of this external stuff defines our self-worth and whether or not we're good enough. We are all good enough. Whether, regardless of where we are in life, we are all good enough as we are. It's okay to have, like, you want to become a better version of yourself. I want to become a better version of myself. That's okay too. But that doesn't invalidate that right now, at this point in time, me filming this video, this version of Lev right here today, that doesn't mean that he's not good enough. I am good enough, right as I am right here. You are good enough, right as you are right now. that might have been a little bit aggressive. I'm sorry if it came off that way. I'm just very serious about this, and I hate all the bullshit that gets ingrained into our heads. Thanks for watching, folks, and I will see you in the next video.